Okay, here we go. It's Monday. It's noon. We are live. I'm trying to make sure that we have our audio worked out. So if you would, let me know if you can hear me. I want to confirm that the audio is good. So if you can hear me, jump in the chat, tell me. If you can't, jump in the chat and tell me, because I won't have feedback unless you guys let me know whether you can hear me or not. We had a little echo last time. I'm going to try to make sure that we don't have it this time. All right, perfect. Andy says that we sound good and we're ready to rock and roll. Fantastic. Okay, if you are here and you've been on these, you know the drill and how we kick off. First things first, jump into the chat on the live chat. Let my team, let everybody know where you're from. And I see you, Wally. Can't hear you, too far away from Ohio. I get it. Okay. But if you're in here, jump in the chat. Let us know where you're signing in, where you're logging in from. And then the second thing is jump over, find where that thumbs up like button is for the video and push the like button. Smash the like button. We're always trying to make sure that we are, because of these YouTube algorithms and these different things, it reads this stuff and it's important that we let YouTube know. And frankly, it's important for you guys to let us know whether or not these are useful, helpful, valuable for you, whether these are meaningful and fulfilling lessons for you. And one of the ways that we do that is just by pushing that like button. And so we appreciate that. If we have given you any value, we would appreciate in exchange just one of those little thumbs up. It's very helpful for us. Okay. Here we are. We are in, well, look, you know what we're here to discuss today. You clicked on the video. Look at what we got today. This was, I said we're getting like a PhD level notes from Saturdays. Going forward, now here we are in patience. What did we just get our doctorate on this one? The notes that I took on this session for patience is astounding. And, I think it's, for me, patience is one of those skills that is completely learned. I find patience a fascinating skill because it is totally unnatural for me. And when I say totally, I mean totally unnatural for me to be a patient individual. I'm not wired that way. I'm not built that way. I wasn't born that way. I have always been a naturally impatient, type of person. So all of my patience and everything I have done has been around patience has been a learned skill. And it's given me a unique view because it has really heightened my personal awareness, because it's the only way I get better at it is by gaining control over something and bringing a level of work and discipline and nurturing into my effort and my practice with patience. And the second I take my eye off it, the second I pull back from that level of work, my patience goes straight off of a cliff. It's a constant for me. And so it's improved my observation of it in myself. It's improved it in observing other people. And it's really turned me on. And this is an interesting piece, just a little sidebar. It's interesting how things that come naturally to us are very difficult to teach because they come from a place, they operate in a place that are really deep down, that just come out. And they don't feel, we don't understand the mechanics of it as well as maybe we can just execute it. Whereas things that we've had to learn and work hard for and overcome and study for and build up, we're often much better teachers of those things. We're able to convey them because we see the guts of it, right? We see the mechanics, we see all the different moving parts and components because we had to put them together ourselves. So for me, I don't teach public speaking skills. I don't teach how to feel confident on stage or on video, because for me, that was not a learned skill. I've gotten better through reps, but it was always easy for me. It was never a trial for me to get onto a stage or get on in front of a camera and speak and act with confidence. Even when I didn't deserve to have the confidence, it was already there and it was in me. And so this is just the natural extension. It's really hard and difficult for me to teach valuable lessons about how to do what I'm doing right now, speaking and delivering stuff and being on a stage and all that. It's very hard for me. Patience is a lot more unique and easy for me to teach because I've worked really hard at this one. And I'm still working really hard at this one. And I think this is a really good time to take a step back on these skills. We've only got one more, and that is the simple skill of persistence. Fitting one to end on. Patience, take a step back. I do think sometimes when people listen to me, and I'm not the only one that people do this with. I think we do this with a lot of people, but just speaking for myself, a lot of people might assume that because I wrote this content, identified these skills, take these notes, teach these videos, and all the rest of the stuff that I do, that I've got all of this stuff on lockdown. And that's just not the truth. Honesty and humility are two skills that are in this very book right here, right? The Essential 2020 Guide to Self-Awareness, Self-Control, and Self-Confidence. Honesty and humility are in there. And honesty and humility compels me to tell you now that I'm not great at everything that I have taught over this entire live stream. I am not great at everything that I'm going to teach today. What I am is willing to work. What I am is practicing really hard on the highest priorities that deliver value to the people I care about and am responsible for, things that I want and need to be producing now, the season of my life, the context of the environment or situation that I'm in, and just for my own personal development. I'm working really hard on it. And so I'm able to teach confidently, not because I do all of it well. I'm able to teach confidently because I know where I have made all the mistakes. And I have made every mistake. On almost all of these skills that are in here, I've made almost every mistake that you can possibly make with these things. And I have been overconfident when I did not deserve to be. I have been underconfident when I deserved and had earned more confidence than I was putting out. I have been both overly extended patient and I have been impatient. And so these lessons, this teaching, for me, this is hard-earned, hard-won lessons and teaching that don't come from a place of I've got all of this figured out and nailed down. This is easy for me. Not even close. I'm teaching from a place of I'm working on this just like you are. I might be ahead or behind you in a particular spot or a particular skill. No doubt that given the number of people that have been on here and are on right now, no doubt you are ahead of me in your own skill and application and ownership of a number of the skills and things that I've already taught through this live stream series. And so I just want to bring us all together on that we're each on our own journeys. And wherever you are in your journey, that's okay. It's not just okay, it's where you are. And so you want to live that out. You want to go forward with that. And that's why we're breaking each of these skills down by self-awareness, self-control or self-discipline, and self-confidence, to know yourself, control yourself, and to believe in yourself. Okay? So, look at all of this. Let's get into this. All right? Okay. So here's the first thing. With patience, again, learn skill for me, and part of my challenge, and I'll extend this challenge to you, is when it comes to learn skills versus natural ones. All right, let me see if I can turn this volume up. Ooh, I think I've got some volume there. I'm going to turn this volume up because I see a couple of you guys thinking this volume could go a little higher. So I'm going to do that for you. And Let's see. Let's make sure we got good volume on this thing. You guys let me know if this volume is too low still or if the volume has gone up. I'm just making sure I'm looking at what I've got here. Okay, great. So, and maybe here, I'll do this. I'll bring the microphone. Look, I got this fancy new microphone. Try not to mess things up. Got this fancy new microphone. I'll bring it a little closer, and that way we'll get into this, all right? Okay, so pull it just a little bit out of the screen. There we go. All right, so, with anything that is learned or anything as emotional as patience, one of the things and the challenges that I face, and I'll extend this challenge to you, to really dial into, and this will come into the self-awareness section in particular, but dial into learning how to assess, evaluate, and make decisions about when to trust your intuition and your nature and let it run versus when to overcome it. And patience is a great example of this, and I'll tell you why here in just a minute. Give you a little structure I've found to be incredibly, incredibly insightful and useful. And if you're a teacher or a coach or a leader, you're going to use this with the people that you lead. If you're not any of those things, you're 100% going to use this with yourself because, it's profound. But we all have to have this discretion. We have to have this discernment, is probably a better word, discernment of when do we trust our nature and our impulses, let them run, and when do we need to put them in check and bring a little more executive management, a little decision-making over our impulses. Look, I was having a conversation with somebody recently and actually a couple people, and I was making the point of, look, and I think we've made it here. I'm not trying to escape and avoid mistakes, because if I knew when I was going to make mistakes, if I already knew when my mistakes were, I wouldn't make them in the first place. I would avoid them. But I don't always know when I'm making mistakes. If I knew when all of my mistakes were going to happen, I just wouldn't engage in them. And this is true for all of us. We all do things that create mistakes, and it's not until afterward we realized it was a mistake. So same thing with impulses. What I know is that I can't trust every impulse. I know there are some impulses that point me in a direction that isn't helpful. I know there's impulses that point me in a direction that is. I just don't always know exactly when they are. So I need to make conscious decisions about when I'm going to let those impulses run, right? When I'm going to say, hey, this is part of my nature I need to follow through on. And then I need to make a conscious decision about when I need to be the executor, right? When I need to be, no, I'm going to put reins on those impulses and either pull them back and stop them entirely or steer them in a different direction, or, whatever it would be. That needs to be a conscious process. And I believe it is not in your best interest to try to drive that to an autopilot habit. That ought not to be ever be an easy thing for you. Simple, yes. Clear, yes. Try to make it obvious, absolutely. But it needs to be and will always be hard work. Anything that you want to make it into a habit that's not hard work is simply you trying to make something easier so that you can not have to work as hard on it. And that's just a mindset that will result in disappointment. And ultimately, I believe that always leads to failure. So preparing yourself to say, look, this is going to be a challenge and I'm going to have to work at this and it's going to be a strain my whole life. That's a good thing. That's a worthy strain. It's just about when you're straining, now it's about, are you getting better? Are you doing it at higher levels and are doing it faster? It's not about it ever getting easier. It's about you getting better at it, okay? So what patience is, right? and if I take a step back, if I look at what action is, right? What is action, right? Action is, and you can see, again, we've got it up here in the notes, right? And if you're following along in your workbook, if you've got this and you're following along, which I think would be pretty smart, and you can, I'll tell you where to get this here in a little bit if you don't have it yet. But if you've got this, printing these out and having these with you is great. Going back and watching the video, going back and watching previous episodes with the booklet in the workbook is absolutely fantastic as well. So, action is, engaging in action is really about intentional effort that we put in, or urgent effort, I should say, or putting in urgent effort having intentional rest, because we can't just be effort all of the time. I do think there is a large following of people who are a large number of people out there pushing messages about just go, 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 go. We need rest. So urgent effort, intentional rest. And then it's about understanding the relationship between short-term and long-term. What is the value short-term and what is the value long-term? And being disciplined, right? And just look at this sentence right here, okay? Look at this sentence right here, okay? Hold on. Let me put my finger on it and then we go from there. All right. Okay, there we go. Being disciplined and bringing that kind of action and patience, and this is what it is. Allow things the time they need to grow. Patience is, and I've been showing this to you, so I'll keep showing it to you. Patience is this simple skill of allowing time for accumulated action to deliver a desired payoff. That's all patience is. Patience is allowing time for accumulated action to deliver the desired payoff. And so I like to think of 4 things, okay? And I call this, I think simplifying things gives us speed to recognition. And I've mentioned this before, but simplifying gives things speed to recognition. Real quick, before we go any further, 2 things. Number 1, if you're just new in here and you just got in, find that thumbs up button and push the like. Let's get an equal number of thumbs up and likes to the number of people that we've got in the live stream right now. That would be awesome. Number 2 is this. I want you to jump over into the chat, and I just want to get a feel for where you all are as an audience. For patience, okay? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to give me a number 1 through 10. 1 being you're terrible, and 10 being you are elite. By this definition right here, allowing time for accumulated action to deliver your desired payoff. On a scale from 1 to 10, how are you with that kind of patience? Again, 1 is you're terrible, 10 is you are elite and amazing at it. Where are you from a scale of 1 to 10? Just so I have a sense, self-awareness wise, of where you are and how you execute patience. And I see that Andy from my team, he went down to the half number marker and he gave himself a 6.5. Didn't believe he was a 7, didn't believe he was a 6, went for that nice 0.5 ratio. Okay, so if you're here, how are you with patience? I want to know, do we have some great, tremendous, phenomenally patient people in here? Do we have some people who aren't good at patience? And then here's the second thing you can follow it up with, because I'm curious now before we jump into here, because I think we're going to see this show up. Based on wherever your gap is, what is it that you personally struggle with in patience? You don't have to, or I should say, where do you struggle? What is it you struggle with patience? You don't have to be too revealing if you don't want to, but what derails you when it comes to being patient? What about, and not outside stuff, inside stuff. What is it that's your struggle? Why would you not be a 10? If you're not a 10, what is it that makes you not a 10? And if you're a 2, obviously there's a bunch of stuff. If you're an 8, there's only a few things. What is it for you? And I'm just really curious. And I want to see what kind of things show up in there, because I promise a bunch of the stuff you talk about is going to get addressed here today. But I always like to deal with the real stuff. And I think it's really, it's a unique opportunity for us to just punch a couple things in. And you can just do bullets, right? Just a couple key words. I get frustrated too quickly, or, I got to cross a certain threshold, or I let the outside voices start to become my inside voice. I criticize myself too much. Whatever those things would be for you, okay? So just drop those into the chat, and let's just see if we can get some real stuff that show up, and maybe it'll affect and influence some of the Q&A that we engage in, okay? All right, so let me just look and see here in the chat. 6.5, 7, 6, 6, 7, 2, 7.5. 7, 8, 5, really situational. 4, 5, 5, 6.5, 2, 8, 4, 5. Yeah, so we've got 7, get complacent, 5. Okay, and then some of the struggles that you have around patients. So we've got people who what I would call right now, we've kind of got like average level of patience, right? That sort of 4 is starting to drift down onto the, like, I really struggle with it. But more in that 5, 6, 7 range, we start getting into the, average level of patience, which is about what we would expect. And then some of the issues that show up are we get complacent. I feel like there's a time limit or there's not enough time. I can't wait. I need it to happen instantly. Lack of focus on the moment at times. Need to get it done too quickly. If we set a time, it better be there. The hurry of life. Somebody else's problem is being overly patient in situations, getting hesitant to feel confident and on acting. Okay, overreact, move too quickly, super short fuse, and then now maybe hold their tongue, maybe a little too often. So maybe it works sometimes, maybe not. Okay, dealing with a lot of different players, students, and parents drives importance of patience. Totally agree, Rodney. Comparison to other people's time frames, huge issue. Obviously, not a good thing for us to be doing, but it pops up a lot. Expecting our priorities, my priorities, to be everybody else's priorities. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I love this list because those are the real things, right? And that's what I love about doing these is, look, we're going to put the simple, real stuff on the table. Now we can get our hands on it. I don't care how dirty or ugly it is. That's who we are in a bunch of key areas. And let's pick up that and look at that dirty stuff. Let's look at some of those ugly pieces about where we are, and then let's address them, right? Let's see if we can move them forward a little bit. And one more, overall feeling of improvement or accomplishment. Okay, great. All right. So when we simplify skills and we say, okay, with patience, it is allowing time for accumulated effort to deliver the desired payoff. With simplicity, it improves something that I like to call, and then watch this. Let's see if I can just reveal just the top part of this to you. Ready? Okay. Let's see if this gets in. Speed to recognition. Okay. Speed to recognition. When something is simple, it gives us speed to recognition. What does speed to recognition mean? It means how quickly can you become aware of it, conscious of it, right? Aware of it is it just kind of crosses you. Conscious of it means it moves to the thinking part of you. And then actually identify what the pieces and parts are, how they're operating together, and see the truth of what's going on. That's what speed to recognition is. If you are a sports person, speed to recognition is what people call playing speed, or when somebody's playing slow or can play fast in whatever the sport is. If you've been around sports, if it's a sport you're familiar with, your speed to recognition is faster because you've got good mental models and frameworks and structures for how everything works. If you've never been around the sport, your speed to recognition of what's happening, for some of you, take you to a hockey game and all you see are people moving everywhere. But if you brought somebody who played hockey their entire life, their speed to recognition when something was about to happen would be much, much faster. Simplicity gives us faster and higher speed to recognition. So what speed to recognition with patience gives us, right? What is the speed to recognition with patience? Well, I think there's 4 things. There's 3 in the book, but I actually didn't, in this booklet, there's 3. And I put them right here in the booklet, right? They're right in this section. But as I was reading through it today, I didn't actually highlight the first one and the one that is the self-confidence one. And so here's what you can do to have speed to recognition and patience, all right? And I put it over on the workbook side of this, so not the content side, but on the worksheet side, I should say. Here's speed to recognition. Number 1, and when I say this, here's what it is. Patience helps you recognize which one of these 4 are you in. Number 1, do you need to stay the course? Number 2, am I making fixable mistakes? Number 3, am I totally off course? Or number 4, am I just not good enough at this? Right? Those are the 4 things. So patience, and you look at what goes on with everybody and all of these lists that you guys have just put together. Do I need to just stay the course? Am I making some fixable mistakes? Am I totally off course with what it is that I'm doing? Or am I just not good enough at doing it? It's not so much a fixable mistake as much as it is I'm not good enough at all at this yet, which would be a bigger version of fixable mistakes. But what I find is this. Let's take an example, and I'll show these 4 things again. I'll just put these up right here, okay? I'm just going to keep these here so you can look at them, okay? Let's look at diet and exercise. All right, I'm going to go with something that is universal, something people carry way too much anxiety about, and they tend to have as part of their plan at all times and really struggle with patience on. Let's just do speed to recognition, okay? Given the current activity that you're engaging in, simple speed to recognition of patience. Which one do you need? Where are you? Do you need to stay the course with exactly what you're doing? Are you making some fixable mistakes? Are you totally off course with how you're making decisions and the action you're engaging in? Or are you just not good enough? You're not capable right now. You're not even fixable mistake says, I'm capable. I've just not been willing, and I can make some fixes. Or maybe there's some minor capabilities that I can improve quickly. Just not good enough means I don't really have the ability. Like, I'm not good enough to run a marathon right now. I'm physically capable of getting in shape, but if I went out and tried, I am not capable. So I would fit this one right here. Just not good enough. Now, I'm not trying to run a marathon, so it doesn't matter. But what happens is this. Let's look at an example when it comes to diet and exercise. How often will somebody start an eating plan to eat really well, start a workout plan, and then start to measure their progress after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? And because they don't see the progress and they don't track the numbers that they wanted, or the numbers that they are tracking don't show up like they wanted, do they jump off of the number 1, stay the course, and move all the way down to number 3 of I'm totally off course, this is bad, and then leave? And what happened was they just had poor recognition, and they do it over and over and over again. And in fact, they could have just done number 1 and 2, stay the course and correct the fixable mistakes. But most likely they didn't even need to work on mistakes. They just needed to stay the course. But people don't have frameworks like these. And so they make adjustments and they come to conclusions based on emotional impulses, not based on realities. Okay. So when you do this, and I'm going to pull this one up again here. Okay. When you do this, look what happens. All right. Speed to recognition, feature of simplicity right here. It gives you the benefit of this. And this is why I love patience combined with the rest of these skills. When you have this, you're going to make better improvements faster with less major errors at a significantly lower cost to your time and emotions. Who wouldn't want that? Who would not want to make better improvements faster with less major errors at a significantly lower cost to our time and our emotional state? I think everybody would want that. And this is what speed to recognition gives us. So with speed to recognition, here's what you will find. Okay. And I'm going to accelerate you to this and then hopefully through it. Here's what you'll find when people make errors of patience. And I already see them showing up right over here in the chat. This is what happens. The speed to recognition around patience, it improves 2 of the biggest errors that happen in patience. Okay. Number 1 is expecting big results too soon after taking action. And number 2 is being passive, but calling it patience. Those are the 2 biggest errors. Here's how significant this is. Look what I put in the top right-hand corner right here. Hold on, let me get this over here. Look right here. Look at this. And I want you to hear this. 99% of patience errors are those 2, and they always lead to the same outcome. 99% of problems in patience boil down to 2 things: expecting bigger results too soon after not enough effort, or being passive and calling it patience. That's 99% of the issue, which means there's 2 things you can do right away. And again, we could just call this whole video right here, and just if we went out and executed, we could fix 99% of our issues with patience simply by putting 2 simple behaviors in place. Number 1, do all the work and then wait for the payoff until you're good enough to earn it. And I'll come to that one in a minute. And number two, you could solve it by being aggressive, not by being passive. Now we'll go back, okay? We'll go back a couple. When I say be aggressive, everybody's like, well, I'm not naturally that way. Okay, cool, no problem. Let's go back and let's learn the simple skill of assertiveness, right? And we learn about the wisdom of when and how to use it. And one of the wisdoms about when and how to be assertive is this. A lot of times, we'll call something patience simply because we're afraid. We'll call it patience because we don't want to do the work. We'll call it patience because the work itself is actually uncomfortable. It's not really patience. It's simply a lack of assertiveness because we don't have the courage to engage in it. Whereas other times, we don't want to do all the work. We just want to do some of the work, or we're looking for a way for it to cost us less work, and therefore we will expect bigger results from too little effort in the short term. And so I just find this is a huge step in the great direction. 99% of issues when it comes to patience are expecting results too soon after the effort, or being patient, or being passive and not active and calling it patience instead. Those are the two biggest issues. And I guarantee whatever version of this you have, it's one of those two things for you. And I bet you it's probably a combination of both, depending on the context of the situation. And I know a couple people were making that actual comment there. Okay. And what do these look like, right? So with number one, the first one of again expecting big results too soon after taking action. These are both fixable mistakes. First of all, okay, both of these are fixable mistakes. But the first one, it expects major outcomes from minor efforts, right? It wants the long-term results from short-term efforts, and that's just not how it works. And then the second one, I think this is a great way to think of it. It waits for outcomes rather than works for them. That might be a good language for you. That when we're passive, but we call it patience, that's essentially waiting for an outcome as opposed to working for an outcome, which is not really patience, right? That's just inactivity. And that just ends up in wasted time, missed opportunities, and then ultimately, I think it leads to kind of a victim mindset. And either, the external world, we're a victim of it, or, and I think, Charlie, you were talking about this, that little critic inside of us, we become our own victims, okay? With patience, okay? And then let's jump into self-awareness, self-control, and self-confidence. With patience, the key area of focus is this. This is what patience is about. Stay on the path. Earn the results when you're good enough. That's what it comes down to. Now, I think we like to get fancier answers than that. And there's a fear of mine, a real one, that that answer turns people off because they expected something more. But it isn't really more. If it's more, it's the emotional or psychological layers within us. But patience simply comes down to stay on the path and build the mindset that you will get what you want, you will get where you want when you are good enough to earn it. You do it for long enough, you're good enough at it, and a little bit of timing goes your way, you'll get the payoff. Now, is that patience for a year or 2 years or 10 years? I don't know. When I started this, when I was 22, I wanted to work with sports coaches back when I was 22, 16 years ago. And I went out all in, gung-ho, super excited, totally enthusiastic, massively confident. Thought I had a brilliant approach. And it took me 10 years. It took me 10 years to get into sports. A decade. And, so when I say I learned patience, I'm talking like I paid the cost. It was a decade. And, it was real. And in retrospect, that decade didn't feel long, looking back. At the time, looking forward, it felt like forever. And that's, I think, one of the cool parts about being a human being is the difference between those two. And I find that looking back, especially when it's work, it rarely feels long from a work perspective. Something might feel long ago, but the work itself, the collection, blinks through like that. So, we got to put in effort that's good enough to earn what it is that we want, and then just stay the course. And it is, in fact, that simple. So, know yourself. I think one of the coolest parts is it's okay to want things right now as long as you understand that you won't get them right now. I mean, I think that's fine. I think part of being a person is recognizing you've got real thoughts and emotions and allowing yourself room to experience those things. You can want whatever you want right now as long as you understand that you won't get it until you actually earn it. And it's not about whether you think that you've earned it. You have to actually go out and do it. You actually have to get what it is that you want, and it won't happen until then. So from a self-awareness perspective is, like we just said, if you're good enough and you do it long enough and you're in the right position and a little timing goes your way, you'll get it when you're patient and you put in all of that work. And so investing into yourself, the mindset and emotion to understand that and live that is a worthy investment of your time, of your effort, of your energy. You've got to put in work, and this is largely an emotional quality, an emotional component that goes into this. And and again, I in my notes here, I like this, right? I think a huge part of patience is overcoming two things, and they relate to, right? They relate to these two. But I think a huge part of patience is overcoming the immediate desire and the temporary disappointment. And you think about where our patience issues come from when we lack it, or when we're overly passive or patient. It's overcoming an immediate desire, and it is overcoming a temporary disappointment. I think those two things are very much enemies of us living and acting as patient people. It's intense focus on action now, and it is confident vision of a payoff later. And a lot of you've heard that from me. It's the combination of urgency and patience. Urgency is now, and patience is the long term. Here's one thing on patience before we do these last two, and then we get into some questions. With patience, think of it this way. Think of patience this way. And we've talked a little bit about this, but think about it this way. I mean, a lot of people say, I don't like to be patient. But you don't have a choice, right? The time is going to go by. Isn't it? I mean, where are we right now? What is today? Today is May 12th, 11th. Today is May 11th, 2020. This video is going to be on YouTube in perpetuity. I can't say forever because I don't know if YouTube will be around that long, but here we are on May 11th, 2020. There's going to be a May 11th, 2021. And if you make it until May 11th, 2021, which I hope we all do you have a choice but to be patient? Let me say it another way. Do you have any way to make May 11th, 2021 get here faster? Or do you have a way for things that will take at least until May 2021 happen quicker? I don't. I can't. What I can do is this. I can put all of the required effort, energy, work, skill, practice, training into now, and then allow the accumulated effort between May 11th, 2020 and May 11th, 2021 to deliver a desired payoff. And that's what patience is, ladies and gentlemen. It is looking at the time and saying, why don't I use those 365 days to my benefit? Why don't I allow those to accumulate? And what that means is it requires us to have a dual perspective. Patience is the cumulative vision perspective. Urgency is the now focus perspective. And that's the difference. Urgency belongs in the moment. Patience belongs in the vision and in the long term. It's the difference between the next 12 hours and the next 12 months. Next 12 hours, urgent, focused. The next 12 months, patient, vision. See the difference between the two? And what I'd like to call people's attention to is it's not like you have a choice for it to not operate like that. Like we that's not something we get to decide. What we do get to decide, what we do get to pick, is whether or not we bring patience to the way time is unfolding. If we don't, time doesn't change. Impact of our effort only changes because now we're trying to break reality. Okay, certain things just take the time they take. And that moves us into control yourself. Patience is not passive. Be aggressive. I think the worst thing that can get tied to and associated with patience is a passiveness. And again, we've talked about it a bunch. It is not passive. It's just not. 3 years from now, you're either going to be glad you were aggressive or you're going to regret that you weren't. Okay? What I always liked, and you heard me say the phrase, discipline is the shortcut. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean by this. Let's take something that is for most people, it's a 5 or 6 year effort. Okay, let's just take that. And I don't know what that would be for you, but something that would take 5 or 6 years. What's the only way to get it done in 3? What's the only way to accomplish it in 3 years? Well, that would be to be super aggressive, super disciplined, and absolutely committed to it on a constant basis. That would be the way to make something go from 5 or 6 years down to 3. Okay, well, that means that 3 years from now, all of that time will pass and something will be filled up during those 3 years. And in 3 years, you will look back on this moment and you'll either be super glad, super proud, and very enthusiastic about the fact that you got this lesson today and started putting it into practice and getting better. Or 3 years from now, you'll have that experience that we've all felt and none of us like, of looking back on this day and regretting that we didn't act on it. And saying, if I'd only acted then, I would have been done by now. And I highlight that because we've all felt it. We've all done it, haven't we? Right? Haven't we all done that where something happened, we go, dang, if I just would have started early. But what? Right now, I say it's going to take you 3 years, and it feels like, oh, I don't have time to be that patient. And I know a couple people in the comments have said, oh, I don't have that kind of time. It's all you have. Right? Like, how often have you said, I don't have time for that? And then the approach that you took because you didn't have time took you longer than if you just would have done the discipline work aggressively and been patient for it to deliver. Right? I mean, this is for those of you who are process oriented, the rework, the fixes, those things are what makes things take twice as long anyway. So this is about bringing an aggressive kind of patience, right? This is about putting passiveness aside. I'm not into that. I don't want to be passive. I want to get after it. But it takes what it takes. And I don't have a choice but to be patient. Okay? And then here's the last one. Self-confidence. Believe in yourself. The reason where for me, where patience hits home the most is that my story is told over the totality of my life, not by any one moment. And I am really glad for that. Because I've had moments that I've won and I've had moments that I've lost. And depending on what moment you picked, my story would be different. I've had moments where I was proud of myself and moments where I'm not. But my story is told over the totality of everything that I do. And that brings patience to the forefront. That brings room for growth to the forefront. I have, just like you, I have plenty of time for the things that I want to do, the things I want to accomplish, the things that I want to get into my life, the experiences I want to have. I have plenty of time for them and to be patient with them. But I do not have time to waste. And that's what I'd like to urge on you. I'd like to press on you is you have time. You just don't have time to waste. And so not being patient, it's costing you too much of your time. It's already cost you too much. You can't afford anymore. There is plenty of time for you wherever you are. If you're 20, if you're 50, if you're 70, there's plenty of time for you to do what you need to do. but there is no time to waste. And so getting into the work and accumulating it and then being patient for that payoff to deliver those dividends, it needs to start right now. That's the biggest thing I can get across to you in this particular moment. So I'm going to press pause here right now. In the comments, two things. One, did this make sense to you? Or how? That's a yes or a no. How much sense did this make? How useful and relevant is this breakdown of patience? Because we did a mindset breakdown, and there were also some practical breakdowns. How useful is this for you? How much sense does this make for you? That's number one. And then number two is, if you've got questions, type Q&A, throw them into the chat, and I'll answer as many as I can with the time that we've got left here. So I'm going to jump in and see if there's any questions that have already been asked, and I can jump into them. I love, and while you're here, by the way, while you're here, go find that like button. If you haven't pushed the thumbs up like button, go push it before we go here. Let's just get those across the threshold. So everybody who is in here at least pushes that thing one time. That'd be really nice. Okay. All right. Let me look at some questions. All right. Glad I got the volume worked up there for you, Mike. Jackson asked, is this the time when we should all be practicing patience? Look, I think patience needs to be practiced all the time. Those of you who've been here, I've got two young kids. I've got a 7-month-old and a 3-year-old. What choice do I have but to be patient? I can't speed up their maturity. I can't speed up the lessons that they learn, at least not in a meaningful and measurable way in terms of being short. Like, how long is it going to take you to get this? And you figure this out. I can't do that. The only thing I can do is speed it up on a longer scale, right? Like my son is 3. What am I going to do? Have him act like a 12-year-old when he's 3 3/4? I guess he's about 3.5 now, right? So he turns 4 in September. How much progress am I going to really make with him in his maturity while he's 3? And the answer is not much. But how much progress can I make on him between 3 and 6? A lot more. How about between 6 and 10? A ton. How about between 10 and 20? A massive amount. But what it requires me to do is give that attention and then be patient for the accumulated effort and work to deliver the desired results. And when I'm looking at a child, at a kid, it doesn't happen in less than years. When I'm looking at weight loss or weight gain or getting in shape, it doesn't happen in increments lower than 6 months. Just so you're all clear. Like, let me just release this burden from you. Shifting and changing your body in any way, shape, or form, it does not happen in increments lower than 6 months. It just doesn't. Can you lose some weight here and there? Of course you can. But just as quickly in under 6 months, you could lose or gain some weight. It'll just disappear like that again or come right back. And you know that because if you've gone through it, you've done it before. The point is, if it's under 6 months, it's not really real. Over 6 months, again, 6 months of collected aggressive effort, that's where you start to see the payoff of this real level of patience. And if it's under 6 months of effort, like you know what I'm saying? Like, don't get upset. Don't carry an emotional weight. If you're not going to put in 6 months of effort extended out, just enjoy who you are and where you are and stop carrying an emotional burden on yourself. So, having an honest, real view of how these things work, no matter how, what's the point? The point is, no matter how hard you work out, if it's less than 6 months, you're really just not going to see the lasting kind of stuff that you would like to see, or the big movements. It'll be incremental, it'll be minor, it'll be up and down, it'll be plateaued. It'll be all of the things that those of you who really want to see that progressive movement, it'll be all of the things that you can't stand to see this, right? Because under 6 months, and you're going to have a lot of that. It's over 6 months where you start to track on a longer timeline that really big, long growth. And if we want to be realistic, it's probably more like 12 if you wanted to make a true life, body, mind change, like a real one. Well, probably 12 months minimum. Okay. So, for people that want to go, on a diet for a week or two, or, I want to, I'm going to work out really hard for these 2 months to get ready for summer. There's nothing wrong with it. There's everything right with it. Something is better than nothing. But when you attach to that work an emotional expectation that can't possibly happen, I think you end up becoming your own worst enemy, and you undermine your effort because you're emotionally draining yourself, and you're sabotaging your own effort, and you're sabotaging your emotional health, and you're sabotaging your next effort because that self-doubt is going to creep in, and that criticism, cynicism, resentment that you have from the last time it didn't work like you wanted. I just think it's all a very, very dangerous game to play, to not have that view. So, people do it with a lot of stuff, right? People want to build social media followings, and they want to go put in 2 months of work or a couple weeks of work, or put out 4 or 5 videos, or do a YouTube live like this, put up some YouTube videos, and then, they get, 50 views and 4 likes, and they're like, oh, it's not working. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, if you haven't posted 100 videos to YouTube when you had 9 viewers and 2 likes, and you didn't do that 100 times in a row, how would you ever get to a video that got 1,000 views or 100,000 views or 10,000 subscribers or whatever it would be? Like, there is no scenario where a massive amount of work with an aggressive level of patience isn't required to get these bigger things that we're looking for in life, whether it's the maturity of a kid, some kind of health or fitness or mental or emotional goal, or, growing something like a business or a presence, or earning money or anything like that, or changing a culture on a team for a lot of coaches. Like, I do culture change for companies, businesses, teams. People say, how long does it take to change a culture? And I say minimum 18 months if you're incredibly disciplined, because that's what it takes. That's what's real. Like, anything less than that is a facade. It's a false front. It's a mirage that tries to get you away from doing the work. And I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I'm going to be that direct person, because I'm not selling you, right? Look, you want this book, it's $20 in the Daily Discipline community, or $200 a year. If you don't want this book or to spend that money, watch all of these YouTube videos. I think there's like 17 hours of them. Go dial in, write your own notes. You don't have to buy a damn thing from me. I'm not selling you stuff. This is a value exchange. If you want to trade your dollars for stuff that would change your life, that's your call. I'm going to keep it real with you. It takes what it takes. The only way to shorten that is to put intense work and be patient. And then you might be able to get it in 1.5 years rather than the next 4. I'd like to help you shorten the path, but it's probably not a short path. That's the truth. Okay. Couple more questions, and then we will get rolling. Q&A from Mike. Early in my skill teachings, I said I played football at Worcester. I've been patient enough to ask this question. What was my position on the team? Josh, got it right. I was a defensive back. I played safety. I started my first year as a receiver, and loved offense, loved that kind of competing and stuff. But what I didn't like about playing receiver was that I could get game planned out of the action, both by the opposing coaches as well as by my own coaches. And so that's the nature of receiver. I switched to the defensive side of the ball, which was my first true real love in football. Played safety and had a blast. I was an aggressive player, and I also learned how to be a patient player as well. And that was probably, it might have been my first real lesson in patience. I didn't learn it in life until later, but I was able to apply this from a football perspective. So D-back, that was what I played. I see that we have Chris dropping some stoic wisdom on us. Epictetus said, remain steadfast and endure to get something worthy of your potential, but this time of trial is rough. Yeah, I'll tell you how I think of it, Chris. I think of this time of trial is rough. I think of it comparatively, and I don't always do that, and most of the time I don't like to, but I do think about this comparatively. How rough is it really? And that's not to say that you have to answer that a certain way. I'm talking about what I say. How rough is it really? I'm doing a live stream with you lovely people. I'm with my wife and kids. My house is air conditioned. Is there uncertainty? Yeah. Is there some emotional difference in life? Yeah. Comparatively, I don't know how rough this is for me personally. And that's just my answer. And so, my patience is more on my desires. And more patience is more on my preferences. My patience is more on my personal opinions or standards that I would have for how the situation should go. But nobody is asking me. I mean, literally, nobody is asking me what my preference or opinion or standard is for how to make decisions for our country or our state or my town. No one's asking me that. And so I'm in the same boat as you all. And that is, I'm going to be aggressive and patient where we are. And then I'm going to go push and hold my standards when and where I can. That's it. All right, couple more, and then we're going to wrap up because we're at 55 minutes. Woo. Okay. Josh asked, John, if we don't have time to do it right, when will we have time to do it over? Love that question. Josh asked, can patience be regarded as the process of living, winning and losing as at these behavioral skills? Yeah, I think that's one way to do it. I also just think patience is about, there's what we do and patience for it to stack up and add up. And then there's, look, the world itself is a dynamic and complex place, and a lot of stuff goes into it. And I read a lot of the old stuff. And so I've got, I got a bunch of World War II books up there. There's a lot of stuff that directed and determined the outcome in World War II that were random chance. Not fate. There was no fate involved. It was just random chance. There wasn't an architect of it. It was the fact that different things happened on different days. Near misses in the night or last second impulsive decisions when they didn't have all the data. Just there's all kinds of stuff. So, also being patient that timing matters. Sometimes it's just not the right time. Especially when you bring the human element. Sometimes that's why I'd be patient with people is, like my own family. It's like, look, my son will learn the lessons that he needs to learn when he's open and ready to learn them because he is his own person and he just might not be emotionally ready. And I'm just going to the future. He might not be emotionally ready to learn the lesson that I think he needs at 16 until he's 22. I don't know. There's timing and there's context. So there's just a lot that goes into it. We just want to make sure we're in position to do our part. We don't ever want to not get the payoff because we didn't do the work or because we weren't patient. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be the cause of our own problems. I don't want to be the creator of my own errors, right? Or my own failures, I should say. Error is fine. Charlie, how do I build the instinct to know when to be more aggressive in a moment? Goes back to my gap problem. And then number 2, is it going to go back to the risk management, making a lot of low risk mistakes? That's exactly it, Charlie. Engage in a ton of activity. Go fill your volume up. And obviously the first part from a guide perspective, Charlie, how do you know is know what your standards are, know what your belief system is, and go out and live them. And then, here's the beautiful part. You have no chance of getting all of your patience and aggressive decisions right. None. You have no shot. And there's a lot of things, and I think this is one of them, that can only really be learned in real life situations by getting the experience, making the mistakes, and learning through trial and error. This is one of those. So go out, make as many decisions as you can, go try to live, figure out where you're good, figure out where you're not, figure out where your mistakes are, and then make your adjustments from there. And do so with confidence. And go back to what we said in the previous video. Be confident until you're wrong, and then make adjustments. And try not to make the mistakes that would cost you too much. Don't make any mistakes that could cost you everything, but make plenty of mistakes that cost you a little bit. And what's going to happen is you're going to have also a pretty good high hit rate, and you're going to learn how to get better and better and better at this. That's the objective. All right, everyone, you all are fantastic. Let me look and see if there's any more questions. Let's see. Love it. Q&A. Was it me or TK who taught the 24 by 24 principle? That's me. I found that a helpful way to articulate patience and putting in the work. Yeah, the 24 by 24, same thing as 12 by 12. 24 hours of urgency, 24 months of patience, 24 hours of focus, 24 months of vision. It's about not reversing those. Every 12 or 24 hours, it's focus, urgency, action, now, work. Every 12 to 24 months, it's patience, vision, timeline, let it stack up. Learning how to, in perspective, right? Learning how to keep those in the appropriate buckets and standards of our life. That's the 24 by 24 strategy. Colin, hey, can we buy the booklet and have it delivered to us like the book? That way, going through these lessons. We don't currently have this in print. Unfortunately, we were set up to do this, and then all of this COVID stuff hit, and it just threw, unfortunately, a ton of brakes on getting actual physical copies made. But you can get this in the Daily Discipline community if you're a paid subscriber. It is a PDF. It'll print out like this. Obviously, I've got sort of a stapled booklet version, which we will have in the future when we can get our suppliers and shippers and warehousers and all that stuff back up online. We will have these and more. Frankly, we're gonna do a lot more of these things and a lot more content and booklets for people, because a lot of you want these things for your teams and little lessons and stuff, and I want to do that. So as of right now, the only way to get this is in the community. By becoming a paid subscriber and going into the resources section. There's a lot more resources. This is obviously one of them. And then you can print it out via PDF and go through it that way. But that's the only way to do it right now. Great question. Okay. Okay. This is it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming in. 1 hour live stream. Thank you for being patient. A little irony, right? On the 1 hour live stream for patience. I guess that makes sense. Okay. The last one. The last one of this is going to wrap our session, okay? Persistence. It is, and here you go, watch, I'll give you a little preview, right? Let's just get into this. What's it say? Persistence. The simple skill of persistence is putting in effort despite doubts, disappointments, and setbacks to achieve an objective that has to be earned, but never guaranteed. Man, I just got goosebumps. I literally just got goosebumps reading that. We're going to be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time for our final one. I would do it at noon, but I've got another webinar I have to do at noon tomorrow. So 10 a.m. Eastern, we will be here on persistence, ready to rock and roll. Thank you. I love you all. I appreciate you. And I'll see you tomorrow to wrap up the 20 trainable skills that unleash greatness.